There are people who navigate the world with an invisible, crushing weight resting squarely on their shoulders. It is not the obvious dramatic kind of sadness that keeps them tethered to their beds, unable to face the morning light. Not a visible breakdown, but a quiet, persistent shadow that follows them into every brightly lit room, every office meeting, and every crowded social gathering. They maintain their schedules perfectly, nodding in agreement during long conversations, and smiling brightly when the moment demands it. They carefully construct an external life that looks entirely functional, making sure they never let a single professional or personal task slip through the cracks. But beneath that polished surface, they feel a hollow, echoing ache right in the middle of a busy room, a heavy emptiness expertly hidden behind a practiced facade. You might know exactly what this suffocating contradiction feels like in your own life. You wake up, you go to work, you answer the endless stream of notifications, and you fulfill your daily responsibilities without ever missing a beat. To the outside world, you are highly capable, incredibly reliable, and perfectly fine. But behind closed doors, the simple, quiet act of existing feels incredibly expensive and draining. You are paying a massive energetic toll just to maintain a fragile illusion of normalcy in a loud, demanding world that never stops moving. This is where most people get it completely wrong about what it means to be truly, fundamentally exhausted. You assume your internal weariness must be a deep character flaw, telling yourself you just need to try harder to keep up the pace. The guilt quickly becomes a second skin, coloring every single choice you make. You punish yourself endlessly for needing so much time in a dark, quiet room to recover from daily interactions that seem so effortless for everyone else. If we go one layer deeper, psychology reveals a fascinating, liberating truth about this specific kind of bone-deep exhaustion. It is often related to a state known as high-functioning chronic depression, intertwined closely with profound sensory and emotional overload. When you are highly sensitive or naturally introverted, your brain processes environmental and social stimuli at a vastly different depth than the average person. Every spoken word, every subtle shift in a colleague's tone of voice, every background noise, and every harsh fluorescent light is absorbed and analyzed by your nervous system. This requires a massive, unrelenting amount of cognitive energy to sustain hour after hour. Over time, your nervous system is pushed into a state of chronic allostatic load, constantly hovering dangerously between hypervigilance and absolute shutdown. Think of your highly perceptive brain as a sophisticated smartphone that is running 50 heavy, demanding applications in the background simultaneously. The screen might look pristine and perfectly normal to anyone glancing at it, but the battery is draining at an alarming rate, and the internal device is dangerously overheating. Your brain is not broken, and it is certainly not defective. It is actually highly efficient, constantly scanning your complex environment to keep you safe from perceived social threats. But this constant, hyper-aware processing leaves your body stuck in a subtle, enduring functional freeze response. You are running purely on fumes, desperately mistaking a severely depleted social battery for a fundamental lack of willpower. I remember a Thursday evening, sitting frozen in the corner booth of a dimly lit, crowded restaurant for a colleague's birthday dinner. The heavy bass of the music was pulsing through the wooden floorboards, and the overlapping, chaotic voices of a dozen people talking at once felt like physical blows. I was mechanically nodding along to a story someone across the table was telling, holding a glass of ice water so tightly my knuckles were turning stark white. My chest felt completely hollow, stripped of all air, and there was a sudden, suffocating pressure in my throat, an animal urge to simply disappear into the walls. I looked around at everyone laughing effortlessly and thought, why is this so natural for them? And why does it physically hurt me so much? That was the defining moment I realized I was not just tired from a long week. I was utterly depleted on a cellular level. I quietly stood up, placed my share of the bill on the table, and walked out into the cool, silent night air, finally able to take a real breath. If this sounds like the explanation you have been desperately searching for your entire life, welcome to the Quiet Psychology Club, a place where we do not judge your profound need for silence, and where we intimately understand that protecting your peace is your most valuable asset. And then comes the part that changes everything. When you live in this extended state of functional freeze, your body starts to develop silent coping mechanisms that look entirely normal on the surface. There are 10 subtle habits that often disguise themselves as simple personality quirks, but are actually clear signs of this chronic quiet depression. The first habit is a paralyzing procrastination over the smallest, most mundane of tasks. You are not putting things off because you do not care or because you are irresponsible. You look at a simple chore, like replying to a short email or organizing a desk, and your exhausted frontal lobe perceives it as an insurmountable mountain. Your overloaded brain actively avoids it because it literally lacks the energetic currency to initiate the required action. The second sign is a deeply and chronically dysregulated sleep cycle. You might engage in severe revenge bedtime procrastination, staying awake staring at the ceiling until 3 in the morning, because it is the only time the world demands nothing of you. Or conversely, you might sleep for 12 hours straight and still wake up feeling hit by a truck, because your hyper-aroused mind never truly entered a state of rest. The third subtle habit is a significantly altered relationship with food and nourishment. For some sensitive individuals, this means forgetting to eat entirely because the body's natural hunger signals are muted by persistent background anxiety. For others, it means actively seeking intense, sugary foods late at night as a desperate attempt to feel physically grounded and produce a quick spike of dopamine. But here is the honest truth about the fourth habit, which is the art of subtle, gradual withdrawal. You do not disappear all at once, because that would draw too much unwanted attention and require energy to explain. You still text back and offer a polite smile in the hallway, but you start cancelling weekend plans with increasingly valid, well-constructed excuses. You deliberately shrink your world down to a much more manageable size, avoiding any environment that requires you to perform a version of yourself you can no longer sustain. The fifth clear sign is a constant, unexplainable, simmering irritation right beneath the surface. The sound of someone chewing loudly, a notification pinging on your phone, or an unexpected change in your schedule makes you want to snap. This is not a sudden anger management problem. This is your fragile nervous system screaming that it has zero capacity left to process even one more tiny piece of unexpected sensory data. And this is where the cycle becomes truly cruel, leading us to the sixth habit, a heavy reliance on excessive, mindless distraction. You might lose hours staring blankly at a screen, endlessly scrolling through short videos, without genuinely processing a single one of them. You are not actually seeking entertainment or joy in those moments. You are utilizing the relentless digital noise to drown out the deafening silence and avoid being left completely alone with your own heavy thoughts. If we look very closely at the seventh sign, we see the tragic fading of vibrant color in your daily life. Things that used to bring you genuine joy, like a favorite obscure hobby, a specific genre of books, or a creative outlet, suddenly feel completely flat. It is a quiet anhedonia, a terrifying numbness where you are just going through the daily motions, without feeling the familiar emotional spark that used to define you. As that internal spark fades, the mind turns inward, bringing us to the eighth sign, the constant presence of a relentless, cruel inner critic. Because modern society tells you that you should be highly energized and always available, your inability to keep up turns viciously against you. You whisper to yourself in the dark that you are fundamentally inadequate, not good enough, and somehow falling irreversibly behind everyone else. The ninth habit is a crippling, daily struggle with decision fatigue. When your cognitive reserves are entirely drained from simply masking your depression, even choosing what to have for dinner feels like solving an impossible equation. Your exhausted brain simply cannot compute or weigh the consequences of one more variable, shutting down when faced with the simplest choices. The 10th habit is perhaps the most heartbreaking of all, living your entire existence on absolute autopilot. You drive the familiar route home without remembering a single street, stoplight, or turn along the way. You sit through entire family dinners, mechanically passing the food and offering polite, generic responses, while your mind floats somewhere miles above the table. You become a quiet ghost haunting your own life, heavily dissociating from the present moment because reality feels far too demanding to inhabit fully. You might look at this extensive list right now and feel a sudden, overwhelming wave of recognition crash over you. You have spent years forcing yourself into rigid, extroverted molds, trying desperately to match the relentless pace of a society that glorifies constant motion. You blamed yourself for every single time you felt the powerful, innate urge to retreat to your bedroom and lock the door. You genuinely thought your chronic exhaustion was a deep personal failure, a shameful lack of resilience that needed to be hidden. But it is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of profound emotional depth and intelligence. Your highly perceptive mind and body have simply been pushed past their absolute physiological limits. Your nervous system is actually performing an incredible, desperate act of self-preservation by forcing you to slow down and detach. It is time to finally stop apologizing for your unique internal architecture, choosing to stay in your quiet home on a busy Friday night, is not a tragic isolation. It is fiercely protective solitude. Turning off your phone, ignoring the endless notifications, and setting firm boundaries is not being cold. It is the deliberate, necessary selection of where your precious energy goes. You are allowed to step back from the exhausting performance. You are absolutely allowed to lower the deafening volume of the outside world. Guarding your quiet space and protecting your peace is the most necessary, vital work you will ever do for your own soul. Breathe deeply into that realization, forgive yourself completely for being so tired, and remember that there is immense beauty in living a deliberately guarded life. Take gentle care of your beautiful mind, and I will be here waiting to see you in the next one.